second, and then we'll join, and then when Mr. Smith joins us. Okay, perfect. The gang's all here. There's Victor.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hello.
Is that a
Ready
and
to
William's
start?
coming in too?
He's here. He's in.
Yeah, did you say you're letting William in?
I said he's in. He's in now.
Awesome.
Ingrid, are you there?
Uh-oh.
Looks frozen.
Looks like she froze. Ruh-roh, Reggie.
Is it mine? Or the district's?
Not the districts.
Here.
I think it
Hold
was
on,
you.
I'm gonna come in on myself.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been on my internet all day. I don't know. Give
Comes today, and we've got less people than day in the building.
me 2 minutes and I'll be in on myself, so I have that as backup.
Okay. Do you want to go ahead and share screen? Use my share screen.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know. My internet says it's fine, but apparently I'm the only one having problems. So we'll go with the cell phone. All right. So it's a little after 5:30. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. This meeting is being live streamed on the Beaufort County District YouTube channel. I assume, Robin, didn't have a chance to talk to you, but everyone's been notified.
Yes.
And do we have any public comments?
No, ma'am, but we can start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Perfect. All right, let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. You guys will join me. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of
States of
America and to the
and to
republic for which it stands, one
one
nation,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty,
and
justice for all.
justice. All right. That was the Zoom Pledge of Allegiance. All right. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
And Will's not here, so I'll second that. All in favor, say aye.
He is on
Aye.
there.
Oh, he is? Sorry.
Yes.
I'm doing it on my phone. Okay. So, Mr. Smith, I'm sorry. Do you second that?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and just for record purposes, I have myself, committee members William Smith and Victor Ney, also board member Carlton Dallas. Am I missing anybody on there?
Not as far as board members.
Okay, perfect. And I see that we have a lot of other people that I'm not familiar with, such as a Miss Alexander, Katya Villasenor Yola. I'm sorry if I butchered that. Merritt Brooks. Are those diligent?
Yes,
People?
ma'am. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Well, let's go ahead and start with that. This was a
I
yeah.
need an approval of the meeting minutes
Oh, sorry.
first, or go past that.
Okay, no, let's go. Can I get a motion to approve May's meeting minutes?
So moved.
Will, can you second it?
I don't think I was at that meeting, was I?
I don't know, it was a while ago.
Yes, you were. You weren't at the beginning, but you were at the meeting.
Well, y'all second that motion.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, 3-0. All right, now on my screen here, we are on to the diligence. So just as a little bit of background, this was discussed at a board meeting and referred to technology to review the change. We've moved from board docs to Diligent board and how we're using it. And basically, there are some people here from Diligent to talk about this product and answer board member questions. So Robin, if it's okay with you, do you want to start the conversation?
Wanted to introduce, we have Merritt, Jenny and Katya online. They're from Diligent. So we were using board docs and they asked us a couple of years ago if we would mind piloting, because they're moving from board docs to community. So for the last 2 years, Molly and I, we moved the board last year. I think last year we started using it more so than, we don't use everything on it, but we introduced it to the board last work session last August, and we have been using it for about a year. So we are in the pilot program of moving from board docs to communities, and I have these 3 wonderful ladies on here who can tell you everything about Diligent. We just came back from the conference a couple of weeks ago, which was amazing. Learned how to do some more things and to implement more things that we're not doing, but they are here to answer any questions that you might have or tell you what's coming down the pipeline and so forth. Did I do a good job? Okay. So I don't know who's gonna be the lead, so I don't know. I'll let you all decide.
Yeah, so the Diligent, why don't you just give us a little bit of background on the shift from board docs to community and what the pros are of being in the pilot program? And then we can start with questions.
Absolutely. As you mentioned, my name's Janie Alexander, and I know there's the records a minute, so I'm one of the customer success team leads. So I work with customers with a couple of our products, but community being the main one. As Robin mentioned, a couple years ago, we started making the move from board docs to community. At that time, community was still in its beginning stages. So that's where, customers that made the shift and that starting point were considered part of the pilot program, but you have all still received every time we've updated and made new features and upgraded community and continue to build it out. Everyone that was with it from the very beginning has still received those and is privy to all those features and tools. So the aim is in the next year and a half, well, I should say by end of 2025, the aim is to start, if people haven't already, start migrating people from board docs to community, the people who haven't yet, with the aim of having all the migrations set up by the end of next year. The idea behind this and part of the reason for the shift was, board docs was built and is still based on a platform that was created in the late 90s. So I'll steal kind of from my lovely colleague on here, Merritt, when we talk about, if you have one of those old flip phones and it's operating on old technology, at some point in time, it's time to start moving up to the next one so you can get those updates and get the latest and greatest features and the new enhancements. So it's on, the most up-to-date and modern platform that's available. So that's part of the reason, we wanted to start making that shift. We have pulled our goal, and throughout all of the process of building out community, is to pull some of the best parts of board docs, as well as one of our other products that is eventually also making the shift to community as well, kind of pulling all the best parts of those and then adding even later and greater pieces to community. Merritt, I'll put you on the spot for just a moment. She is one of the migration managers, to see if there's any pieces, since she lives and breathes the migration from board docs to community, see if there's anything I missed or that you wanted to highlight.
No, I think you did a great explanation there. I mean, yeah, the short gist of it is that board docs is built on old technology. And when our development team started looking at adding the features that have long been requested by board docs, by our board doc subscribers, it just became clear that it was going to be better to build a new site, a new system to add those new features into on a new platform, as opposed to band-aiding the band-aiding things within Board Docs. So it is our goal to, of course, introduce a product community that everybody wants to move to. So when I did approach Robin about joining the pilot program, it really wasn't a pilot program for community itself. Community was in full function, although early. It was about 2 years old at that time, maybe 3 years old. So but the migration piece of that, so moving the data from Board Docs to community, was part of that kind of pilot program. And then also getting feedback from those early adopters on, where do we stand on the feature base between the two platforms as well. So, so that is kind of the backstory there of why we're moving to community.
Okay. That sounds. So I guess at this point, I know that Mr. Ney and Mr. Dallas have not been really, I don't think that you guys ever used Board Docs, or maybe you did for a very short period of time. But I don't know if anyone has any particular questions. I have a couple, but I'd like to see if anyone else on the committee has some questions they'd like to ask about Diligent, how we use it, what we might want to get out of it.
No, I did have, I had a little bit, maybe 6 months of experience, maybe 3 months, something like that, of Board Docs. So I really don't have a basis for comparison, since this is my first time on the board and using a platform like this. I will echo some things which I'm sure Ingrid's going to talk about as far as the search function. So with that said, Ingrid, fire away.
Okay. Yeah, that is one of the top concerns that we have had, is if I want to go back and look at a presentation right now, I think I would say the primary way that it gets used is through a hyperlinked agenda where the materials are kept. Now, I don't know if the materials, what that link goes to. I don't know if that goes to some sort of internal OneDrive or, something where or if there's something within Diligent that is holding all the presentation materials. But if I want to reference back to a presentation in April of 20, or maybe like I was a couple of operations committees ago, I remember we talked about this. The search function does not work for us to go back and find that information. In Board Docs, I didn't think it was a great search function because you couldn't sort by date. And it would also search, you couldn't limit the search to just your own organization. It would prioritize your own organization, but then it would start pulling in like other people using Board Docs that had that higher up in the search algorithm. But it's gotten where right now, the only way, if you're trying to find something that you remember was presented, is to go back like meeting by meeting, click through the links until you find it. So are we doing it wrong, or is that something that is going to be addressed? Because that is a real frustration.
Yeah, I can understand how that would be a frustration. I'll kind of take your question in two parts. One, just to point on or touch on the meta search functionality. That's where you're talking that you can search through other school districts and their public information. That is going to be incorporated into community as well. And there are additional functionality and benefits to that meta search functionality. With that, we can now narrow by state. So if we only wanted to look, at school districts within your state, or perhaps we only wanted to look at policies of school districts within your state. So we have even some more ways to narrow down those search results when we're searching out through public information of other organizations. However, something just to keep in mind there is that we can only search public information of folks using community, just like the Board Docs meta search searches public information of organizations using Board Docs. So the more people that we get into the community environment, of course, the more robust, that meta search functionality will become. And then part two of your question here. So can you tell me, where are you in the community platform when you're doing a search? And is it, are you doing that search kind of out on the public site? Are you doing that from a logged in view? Where are you generally at when you do your search?
I have used similar to Board Docs. Oh, you know what? Something is definitely wrong with my internet now. I was going to pull it up. I just use the Spyglass.
Okay, so while you were, or did you use that? Well, I guess it doesn't really matter in Board Docs, of course, because you have access to that magnifying glass. In Community, there's a search tool that you can do out on the public site, and it's slightly different than the search tool that you can utilize when you're logged into the site, and can view the information. So I'm just trying to get a better understanding of we do, I'll back up on that note as well. We do have reports in with the development team to improve the search functionality, and actually both places. So on the public site and or within the logged in view. There are some ways to sort through that search information, especially like you mentioned for presentations, because now we can even sort our search results by file type. So if we had added that presentation in, say as a PowerPoint presentation, we can actually go back through and filter those search results by PowerPoint presentations. However, I understand that does not help your information that was migrated in from Board Docs, because of course everything that pulled over from Board Docs came over as PDF documents. So I think that our team would definitely be open to suggestions or what you're looking for. Obviously clicking back through each of those search results to find what you're looking for is not an ideal way of quickly being able to reference what you need. But definitely interested in if you're doing that search from the public site, and if you're on your all's public site, there's a search kind of bar in the top left hand corner, and then there's also a tile that says search, or a tab that says search, where you have some search functionality where you can go by keywords, even some advanced search functionalities looking for things that contain one or more of these words and things like that. So I'm just curious as to where you've been finding your results. And I see there's a question also.
Yeah, whoever has that question, I can't see very well. So Robin, I don't know who that is.
Carlton has a question.
Oh, great. Carlton.
Yeah, so Ms. Boatwright and some of the others are really proficient in technology. So some of the things you're speaking about now, Ms. Brooks, they can internalize and respond to them. I'm wondering if the mechanics of having something on the website that a technophobe like myself, who doesn't have that level, if we could just send like a chat request of how do you do that and get a response. Because the group that's testing it now is so important in terms of formulating the opinion of Diligent Community. I think giving that type of flexibility, if it currently exists, at least to them, would help shorten the cycle time to improvements once those improvements are requested or suggested.
Yeah, I think that would be a great functionality. There is also talk of utilizing AI in the community platform to be able to do some things just like you mentioned here, even with a chat or returning search results quicker, things like that too.
Does raising it here basically identify it as a suggestion?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll be taking notes as well to take back to our team. If I wanted to jump into as far as like current resources and support that you have, of course, there's the help guide that you can click into and find all the pieces that you need. But we can also, I'm always happy to coordinate some time as far as coaching. We have some different videos out there and that sort of thing. So we definitely want all our current clients to be supported in every way possible. So Katya, who's on here, is like the assigned CSM for Beaufort County, and I am her team lead. So that's part of the reason we're both here. So in addition to the 24/7 support team, you have like a go-to people. You have a couple of us. So that is also something, if that would be helpful to you, Mr. Dallas, or to anyone else, we can also coordinate in the meantime, while they're still doing as our team's working on building out more search functionality, to make sure you feel confident in what's currently available to you. We can always coordinate sessions. I can create videos, whatever needs to be done.
If you could leave that access point with Madam Chair Boatwright, or either Ms. Mercado or Ms. Cushingberry or whomever, so that I could access it, that'd be great, ma'am. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yep.
Elizabeth has also joined Ingrid. Ingrid? Lost her again.
I'm unmuted now.
Okay.
Apparently, my phone decided to mute me. Welcome to Elizabeth. And Robin, if you'll just shout out if you see someone's hand, because I'm doing this on my phone. It's not real user friendly. But in addition to the search function, from what I can tell, we're sort of using it as a, hyperlinked agenda, which is fine. But that's not a particularly challenging use of the technology, right? So as far as like having a comprehensive board management software, I have experimented with like the note taking and the annotating and putting comments. What I have found is that if I'm doing that, say preparing the materials a couple nights beforehand, and then when I pull up the meeting, those annotations and notes are either gone or they're somewhere I can't find. They don't seem to stay on there. So I can see the potential of that, but I'm pretty tech savvy, and I don't have time in the middle of a meeting when I want to go back and refer. I can't find the notes, the questions, or the annotations that I've made on the materials. So, and I do think also that window sizing for that PDF is challenging, because it's constraining the PDF, and you have to kind of blow it up, and then you've got to maneuver it around up and back. So I haven't found that to be super advantageous. But the other thing is, I'm just perplexed when I look at what Diligent offers. I think in some ways you guys offer a tremendous amount more than either we're using or really we need, because it talks about market analytics, compensation discussions, dashboards for audits. We're not, that's a very different use case. So if you could help me understand why Diligent is such a good product for a public board, knowing that we do have some information security concerns, and we have started putting our executive session documents into our Diligent environment, which is great. But what makes Diligent a good fit for a school board?
Yeah. And Jeannie, I don't, if you are taking notes, if you can please write that, because the annotation tools should not, that sounds like an issue we need to investigate further, because that
we'll
not
submit
supposed to happen.
We'll submit a case, because it should follow you, no matter what device you're on. It's about right. It should, whenever you log in, those notes and annotation should be there and ready to access. So I already made a note so we can create a case for investigation and ensure nothing is amiss there.
For me, so feel free to provide me with any documentation. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Thanks. So
wonderful. Yeah, that's perfect. And just so you know, so Diligent really has about 3 pillars, kind of main pillars underneath their umbrella, if you will. So they have a section that deals with corporate boards that are publicly traded. We have a section of Diligent that deals with nonprofit and hospital boards. And both of those really are more private side or private sector. They're not sharing information with the public. And then we have our section of Diligent that is specifically created for public meeting governing boards. So, of course, anyone that has information to share with the public, municipalities, cities, towns, of course, school districts as well. So I think probably some of those different, things that you saw there really speak more to the other departments within Diligent, as opposed to our public sector boards.
Right.
And then, utilizing, obviously we built board docs for public facing boards, and then keeping that same forefront in mind when we built out community as well. So it is designed and built specifically for public facing boards.
So I guess my question would be, what functionality is in the public facing boards that makes Diligent a good fit for public? Like, what does it do that your average board management software would not do?
So I think a lot of it comes into play as creating the agenda, streamlining that process and allowing, if you're utilizing a workflow piece where different departments can submit agenda items, for approval to go onto an agenda if those need to route through a workflow. But then also incorporating things like the request to speak option. If we want to allow people to request to speak at an upcoming meeting, there's also a subscribe option. So members of the community can subscribe to receive notifications for upcoming meetings. And then, even just things like having the voting streamlined so that we're recording, motion seconds and votes, having that information all pull over into your meeting minutes for you. And then, we do have the ability to make those actions available publicly as well, if we wanted to make those publicly available after the meeting's over. Just kind of
Okay,
thinking
I
through
like
my head there.
Now, one of the some of the highlights we hear from other boards is usually that annotation tool. So that's where I definitely want to make sure it's working as it should be for you, because I know that's a lot of the clients I've interacted with, like they're like, we love this, like that's one of the highlights of it. So we'll definitely make sure that's working correctly, because that would be, if it's all working as it should be, I feel like hopefully you'll say, oh, this is one of the advantages, because how this allows me to do my work and prepare myself for meetings. So
William's hand is up.
Okay, well, I'll call, it was just 1 second, Mr. Smith, because I wanted to quickly respond to your comments. I think, Janie, the 3 things you mentioned, subscriptions, workflows for departments, and I forget the third, but those are all like great things. Robin, I don't think we're using those 3 things. And the reason I want to make that comment is because I'm trying to assess if Board Docs, has functions that we need, and we haven't activated them, or they're just coming online now. So if those indeed are available, I think those 3 things. Also, I heard, that's the third thing. People can sign up to speak at public comments through our board, through Community, it sounds like.
Yes, what we have just started, and Robert is our first guinea pig at this board meeting, is we're starting to workflow. We had the ability to do public comments, but because of our policy and the way it's set up of wanting to have community members do it online and in person, and we have to work that out. So therefore we have not implemented that, but the possibility is there.
Okay. All right. Sorry, missed that. So anyways, I just wanted to respond to that. So thank you so much. Mr. Smith.
Yes, ma'am. I do believe that we have talked about that before, about using this tool, and that I believe that some of us, the majority of us, well, I believe that some of us didn't know that feature was there, because I think we did discuss. I do remember us discussing a board meeting one time in terms of policy and how that would affect our policy. But needless to say, in terms of functionality questions, is there a 1-800 number that you could possibly call when you may have questions about the program?
Yes.
Is that already?
Yeah, there's a 1-800 number, and then there's also, like, if you're logged in, there is a help menu up to the right, which then you could send a request straight to our support team. And then, as mentioned over the last few months, we've also implemented where all of our accounts, or all of our clients or subscribers, all have a dedicated CSM, so a customer success manager. So the support team's 24/7. So hopefully you're not having to do things in the middle of the night, but we know that happens sometimes. People are dedicated or have different schedules. Yeah. So if something does come up in the middle of the night, you do have someone available. If you're running into an issue or forget how to do something, there is someone available. And then Katya, who's on here, is the CSM for you all. And then I'm her team lead as well. So you have both of us for anything else, or the catch-all, those in between, product training, product support.
Good. That's definitely a good thing, so that we don't so that we don't get too sick in the staff. That's a good thing. Also, is there a way to look things up in terms, like some programs have like a little search box where you can okay, yeah. What does that look like? And how does that work?
Do you mean like as far as like the general search functionality, or in a specific area? Sorry, I want to make sure I'm addressing the right question.
Yes, I guess the question would be well, who, where, what, when, why not? How does that function work, and what is it limited to, or limited not to? And in terms of, for instance, let me give you an example. Let's say that I see on the thing it says approval of the May 28th, 2024 committee meeting, and there was a motion that during that committee meeting, where can I possibly type that in, or type in our committee meeting of technology and a motion? How would that work? How can I get that information from this program?
Yeah, so there's, I know we talked about like the search functionality earlier. There's a couple different search bars and search features within Community. So when you're logged in, depending where you're at on which page, there's, you can always look for that magnifying glass and type in there, and you can do it, keyword search, or if you have a lot of terminology, you can search through that. Again, when you're logged in, and if you're looking at like the published or the meetings that were shared, I should say shared, distributed to you all as members, you can also filter per meeting type. So you have a couple different options when you're logged in. And then also if you're on the public site, to kind of repeat what Merritt was saying earlier, at the top left, there's like a search bar, and then there's also the search tile. The top left is going to ultimately, if you're down the road, that's where we're enhancing our search features, but that would allow for a meta search down the road. But right now it would search the documents and information within the system that have either been created and distributed within Community or were uploaded into the document library in Community. So again, when y'all were migrated from Board Docs to Community, that information was imported in. So that's also searchable, again, on if you're logged in and if you're looking on the public site. So there's a few different areas to search. So one of the notes I've taken with me from our meeting today is to kind of, one, we can offer that option to do a quick run through. I can create a video, whatever it may be, but also just send our current resources as far as like searching the content. Does that address the search piece you were looking for, or have I missed a specific area on that? I want to make sure I'm getting the information you need to you.
No, ma'am, I appreciate that, which brings me to my next question. Unless someone else gets on, I don't ask too many questions. In terms of the function of the program, let's say, for instance, I know sometimes for board meetings, the board has a policy where we have certain periods of time where information information is required to be in. Is that like a function that where it would lock like maybe 12 at night to when no more like no one else could put input information in? Do we have is that something?
Is that like, as far as like, if you guys were using that request to speak feature where people can sign up for public comment, or are you talking about just in general, like for a meeting? Or
he's asking like if staff was to during the right now would be under the workflow, but
Okay.
he's asking if staff has a time limit of getting documents placed into Community by a certain time. And I guess the question is, can they, if they don't have it in there by midnight, by 11:59 Thursday evening, anything that comes after that, they're unable to put it in? Is that your question? Yeah.
Okay, thanks for, so I want to make sure I'm addressing the right spot since there's different areas in the system. So there is currently a feature request in the system to where folks could set up like kind of a cutoff time. So the admin, so, Robin and Molly who work on it regularly could set like, at this time, we can't accept items, or they'll go to the next meeting or whatever it may be. Right now, there's not an automatic way of doing that. However, the admin, so the people working on the agenda, could in the system be called rejecting. Just reject the item and send a note to them, and then it can be sent to that next meeting. So right now there's not that automated piece, but that has been one of our top requests. So we'll make sure that you all are included on that. So when that feature does roll out, you'll be notified and know that it's available as far as an automated way, like to set a cutoff time so the system would know.
Okay. Did I answer all your questions, Mr. Smith?
Yeah, someone else can go. Yes, ma'am.
Fantastic. Well, I want to say thank you so much to Janie and Katia for coming to speak. I had one suggestion that I wanted to run by you. Or it may be something done. There's so many times I would like to see, I thought we had a motion. I'd like to be able to search for a motion and see the vote on it, like from a year ago. I don't know if that exists, but that would be a really nice feature. And then my final question was, I know we're getting a discounted price being in the pilot group, which I'm all about. I don't mind being a beta tester at all. Is that going to go up once the pilot program's over? Or is the price we have now pretty much the price we're, with reasonable, general increases? Is that pretty much the price we're at?
It's just following Merritt, I saw you unmute. Yeah. I'll make sure. I think it's following the standard, the annual increase, but you can confirm on that if
you're correct. Yeah, no, you're at the price that you're at. So I think other than outside of the regular, standard, I think it's a 5% increase year to year. but there's not a price increase once the pilot is over. And then also just to quickly, I love your idea of being able to search for emotion. I think that's a great idea. I will say, and Robin, correct me, you all were using the minutes tool in Board Docs where you're recording the motion, seconds, and votes within the meeting control panel?
Yes, but I'm not, please, yes, we do use that, but it's not available for public right now. Because we have to format it, but yes, we do use the tool where you record the motions and the votes and who makes the vote.
Perfect. And y'all used that in Board Docs previously as well?
Yes.
Yeah. So just on that note, Ingrid, if you did search for information that was in Board Docs, that vote did pull over with the migrated data. So if you were, I'm looking at our agenda right here that we have up, but if we were looking for, discussion of hardware computers, and we did take action on that, that action did pull over with the migrated data that came in from Board Docs. And then we are also working on a way to make that information available to the public easier in community. Right now, we do have an ability, and this, Robin, we could talk about this if you guys want to consider adding the tile on your public site that would allow us to look for that information. But I do like the idea of being able to search by motions as well. I think that would be a really nice add-on.
Yeah, because we do have, if you don't remember what the presentation was to search for, you just remember, I thought we had a motion on this. There's no way to search unless you know the presentation or the action was taken. So, but anyway.
Hands up next.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to conclude from my perspective of, I think it would be in the best interest of both school district and Diligent if you could identify an expanded training program so that the super users we have in the school district can become some of your best, promoters and help the rest of us learn. So I know you already have a training session for Ms. Mercado and Ms. Cushingberry. But maybe expanding that even a little bit further might be worthwhile. Thank you.
Just to let you all know that they have agreed that they could come and they can train. And that is one of the things that we will be having in process with new board members coming on in November as part of our orientation. So that would be one of the things that would be going on at our work session. So they have already agreed that yes, that they could come and do training for board members and refreshers.
Excellent, and thank you.
Great suggestion. Okay. Well, thank you so much to the Diligent team for coming. I feel like this was a really good discussion and you answered all of our questions and concerns. So we're looking forward to bringing this discussion to the full board and using some of the new things that Robin and Molly have learned at their their conference. So.
And as y'all think of more ideas, please feel free to share your feedback and thoughts too. So we're always interested to hear those.
Yeah, and it's always fun because then when you provide the feedback and see the feature roll out a little bit later, you're like, hey, I was part of that. So we've seen it a lot. So thank you all for letting us join and giving us this opportunity to talk about what we love the most.
Great.
All right.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Okay. Thank you, Robin, for bringing that in. That was really helpful. And then not tomorrow night, but at the next board meeting, we'll present that conversation to the full board.
I'll ask you later on about that as future topics. So we'll go on.
Okay. Moving right along because it's late and I appreciate everyone being here at 6 something at night. So we're going to have the discussion of the hardware/computers. So Mr. Shohan, do you want to introduce the items you have there?
Yes, I've got a couple of documents. I've got the promissory notes, basic damages for student devices over the year. And then I also have our ticket counts for all tickets, including staff, and the satisfaction surveys from staff over the course of the year. So I guess we'll start off with the damage report. Oh, what do you got? You got the promissory notes.
I'm just
yep, there you go.
So I can put whichever one you
want. We'll start right off with the promissory notes.
Okay.
It's already up there. So this is a list of promissory notes at each school throughout the district. And I also included the current enrollment as of 8/27. That was our 15th day, I think. Just so you'd have an understanding of how many kids are at each site.
And just for clarification, Mr. Shohan, promissory notes, I'm assuming from context that these are people who owe us money because they've had at least a second break. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, if my kid breaks the screen a second time and I just pay cash, I'm not signing a promissory note, then I would not be on this list.
Correct.
Okay, so these are just the numbers of people who are basically on a layaway plan for their personal device.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Mr. Smith has a question.
Mr. Smith, please go ahead.
Okay, I'm thankful that you explained what promissory note is, but also I see different columns here. Okay, hold on.
The first column is the notes that parents have signed at per school, and the second column is the student count for that specific school.
So if I'm looking at this, it's 207 total out of a population. It's roughly 1% of the student population.
Yes, ma'am.
I would probably, if I was looking at this data, I would probably take the elementary school kids out because I don't know how many they're taking at home. Obviously, the parents are probably getting the backpack, picking the kids up from school. So I think it's really, and you can see it's the middle schools, right? And the high school that have those issues.
Absolutely. The continuing thing that we see with our middle schoolers being the hardest on our devices. Also, our middle schoolers are more apt to not carry their device in their bag and just slip their laptop inside of their book bag, which provides no cushioning, and they throw their backpacks around, and that's usually where the extra breakages come from.
Right. So, we're probably looking at, I would say, roughly 2.5%, 3% of the middle school and high school kids. And that's not a terrible number, except for the fact that these are just the people that can't afford to pay for the second break. So I think that needs to be considered because that's not an insubstantial number of middle school and high school kids. And you can see clearly Ladies Island Middle School, you're looking at 8-9%, and then H.E. McCracken look like schools. So I don't know if there's a way looking at this data to say we need to put some extra steps in there or something, because when you start getting to 10% of the student population is, essentially in debt to the school district for something that we require them to have, it might be time to think about maybe some targeted interventions in those areas. Are there any comments from other board members on the promise?
Smith?
I do know that some schools do put emphasis on these promissory notes, and that some schools make sure that parents are paying these promissory notes. So I just want to definitely say kudos to them as well, and for us to have all these schools, I see maybe. Maybe about 10 schools are in double digits in terms of promissory notes. And I guess at some point we have to probably consider some of the areas that these. Well, I'll just leave it there. I'll leave it.
Mr. Dallas's hand is up.
Mr. Dallas, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I may just suggest some small edits to the format of the document. One is to segment by school type, so middle, high school, elementary. And then if you could have a percentage line, so a percentage of those that are the current enrollment, it would allow us to really sort of quickly identify where the trends are. And I think whoever said it before, I think Ms. Boatwright, either Mr. Smith, talked about intervention. I think that would help us target and devise some intervention plans. So just a thoughtful consideration. Oh, and comparing to last year, so we can see is the trend better or worse than it was 12 months ago. Thank you.
Oh, I do like a trend. I think that's a good idea. Now we have a baseline of understanding, and I completely agree with you, Mr. Dallas and Mr. Smith, but breaking it down, looking at percentage is important because you've got a school with 1,700 kids and you've got a school with like 170. So the numbers, you need to understand what the percentage is. And then if we do have any suggestions or target interventions, it'd be a good idea to maybe sometime in the summer of 2025 to compare how last year's school, I don't know how long it takes to compile these numbers, to see if the trend is staying the same, if we're able to reduce it or something else. Because I do think that especially in some of these middle schools, we could have more issues in terms of the promissory note aspect of things, because that's not a good feeling for anybody. So did you want to look at copy of tickets? Or do you want to do the copy of student damages?
We got the tickets up. We can go right through the tickets.
Perfect.
So these are the total amount of tickets we handled throughout the 23-24 school year. Now take that with a grain of salt. That is 27,000, almost 500 tickets. But what's not in there is the 22,000 devices we image over the summer. We do that every year, and we think it's an undue stress on the technicians to have to create a ticket for every device, knowing that we're going to re-image every student device at the end of the year. So in all actuality, you could probably almost double that number for the actual amount of tickets for the year, but that's the way we calculate it. I just wanted to make that point.
But just to be clear, the total, the 27,500 roughly, is actual tickets and not just the reimaging.
Correct. That's
Okay.
correct.
And can you tell me what you do include in a ticket? Because are these just hardware related tickets, or are these I forgot my password, type ticket?
These are usually a mix of all, usually not the password forgotten because they will walk down to their local school tech. These are generally either a software, hardware, or just a issue they're having in their classroom, maybe with their, I was about to say Promethean board, I'm sorry, Boxlight board, or maybe their in-room sound. So it encompasses all school technology.
Okay. And who puts it? Students don't put in tickets. This is just staff, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So does this number reflect any damages? Like if someone brings a screen in, is that captured in this ticket?
It would be in the ticket. We didn't break out staff damages.
Okay. Well, I mean, or student damages. So if my kid.
Yeah, I did not correlate it back to this ticket account, but I do have a full damage report by school and different metrics.
Yes, I saw that.
Student side, yes.
Any questions about the ticket process here?
Mr. Smith?
Go ahead.
I see the opening and closing and of ticket numbers. For a district this size, I don't necessarily. I think for this size, I still think there's still some who, where, what, when, why, and how, some questions out there in terms of how many techs we have, how many people we have in technology department, how many people are working on tickets. I mean, because we have something at the school level, and I think that some tickets may arise district level. So I think what that looks like, it does matter in the form of the kind of the baseline information here. I think there's a little more processing this, to me in my mind. There's a little more information than processing this, and what this numbers of tough tickets that we have. Because some of these, like as you analyze, I mean, as you pointed out earlier, some of these tickets could be password. Some of these tickets could be locked on the computers. Some of these tickets could be I can't find a program on my computer. My computer shutting out. So I think some of these tickets may go to different people throughout the district because for some you could be send a ticket in, but they also tell you possibly bring your computer because your computer might have a different issue going on with it. So I think in terms of the processing, what all the departments you have within technology and how they how they divide the work up amongst the department and how many people we have in the department. I think that is relevant to just not just getting the status of the tickets. Because I mean, same thing with maintenance. I remember the maintenance came before the operations committee and they bought some of the tickets, but you have the plumbing department, you have you have the electrician department. Everyone has a specialty amongst these tickets and what that look like. And also you have the person at the actual school level who's part of technology too, who does handle some of these tickets. So you have a variety of people who initiate who have a hand in getting these numbers completed.
Yeah. I totally get what you're saying. I agree. I think what we could ask, because what we've asked Mr. Shohan to bring to this meeting was the damage and the breakage. And I think given us an overall sense of the tickets, and I also really appreciate the fact that the satisfaction, and that is spectacularly high for tech support. So kudos to your department. I think what Mr. Smith is raising, which is something we can talk about, is maybe another technology committee meeting, we could have sort of an overview of the life cycle of a ticket, like how that works, how it gets routed, how it gets handled, the different departments that are involved, just so that it'll give us a fuller picture of the whole technology department. But I do think for this particular assignment, because what we asked him was for the breakage rates on the one-to-one devices. So if you don't mind, Mr. Smith, I don't think Mr. Shohan's prepared to present on all of that, but I think it's a great topic for another meeting. But right now, I think we need to focus on the next section, which is that breakage section, if that's all right with you.
Well, yeah, I do agree, but I do think from here, the question will be, where do we go from here? Processing information, and I do think that is a huge process question in terms of understanding the process of what we have and what we're dealing with, and the information that we're receiving. So to me, my mind, it comes. We can hear what he has to say and what information he's bringing, but to me, that information that I just quoted to you is a part of the process. So totally. Who, where, what, when, why, and how. I mean, I'm not saying stop him there or respecting him, but I'm just saying the process of what that looks like is a big part of moving forward. But
I could give a little ticket background if you'd like.
I think we can wait. I think we can wait for you to bring that in terms of what that process is.
Let's bring it to the next one, because I think, we could even have a few guest speakers to come and talk about it, because I do think that the ticket process is probably really interesting and would help the board have some insight into the tech department. But since we're already at 6:30, I would like to kind of dive into these breakage numbers on the next section. And Mr. Smith, we will put that on a future agenda item for the next technology committee meeting. So let's talk about these breakage numbers. Now this is 1 time, 2 times, everything, right? And you've got it broken down. It came in 3 pages, but you've got it broken down by keyboard, sound, motherboard, network, other, and then totals. Is screen not as,
LCD, the very first column.
Oh, okay. I missed that. All right. Yeah, because I would say usually the one I hear the most about is screens. So
it is, okay. Yes. And I would like to point out we had 2 schools that you'll see no data on. And that's not that we don't have any data on those. It was the technician entered the tickets incorrectly and entered them under the other category. So we weren't able to break those out specifically. And that's something that the tech supervisor has worked on with those individuals.
All right, so for those two, the 782 and the 289 is just all the categories combined, essentially.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, so it doesn't total at the bottom, or does it? Let's see. It's kind of hard to follow. Oh, yes, you did. So we had 20,309. 309.
That's the enrollment. Sorry.
Okay. No, I'm trying
That's the
to.
student enrollment. I do have the totals under LCD. It's 3265. I don't think I included them on yours, and I'm very sorry about that. That was my
Okay,
fault.
No worries. I'm still making notes. So LCD, you had 3,265.
Yes, ma'am. Under keyboard and touch, 1233. Sound and mic, 341. Motherboard and other, 509. I'm sorry, motherboard 509. Other is 3361. Excuse me.
All right. So yeah, I would say that the LCD screen is probably the biggest issue. And those ones I know that we do, the HP, we have the HP 360 Pavilion. Is that what it is? Fortinet?
It's the X360.
X360. Okay. Because it's a tablet too, right?
Well, it's more of a laptop because usually the tablets, the top will remove from the keyboard, or either it'll flip all the way around to make it more of a tablet size. So we still consider these more laptops than tablets.
But I do think that the screens flip around. Am I incorrect?
I'm not 100% sure on that one. I don't want to say either way. They possibly could. Hold on, we have one right here. Let me try it.
Henry, flip your screen.
They do. They do. It seems a little.
Yeah. So 8,709 total breakage issues on 20,000 or so. 20,000, what was that number? Enrollment 20,300 is the.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I'm doing math on my little computer here. 8,709 divided by 2,309. So we have a breakage rate of 42%. Does that sound right to you? That's not right. Yeah, that might be right. 40. Yeah.
Yeah. The total should have been about 9,030 on all damages. So yeah, that's about right. 42%.
Okay,
and if you take that down even further, you'll see that our middle schools dominate that with our high schools behind them. Our elementary schools are usually are less. One reason is because our K through first grade use iPads that don't go home unless there's a disaster or emergency, and we will send those home for virtual learning, but on a day-to-day basis, they stay in the classroom and in carts. So we don't see very much breakage out of that segment of students.
Okay, does anyone, any other board members have comments about that?
Negative.
No, ma'am.
Okay. I think 42, basically 43% is really high. And I don't know, it's hard for me to tell if it's like a keyboard, thing popped off like sometimes does, and it was not a big deal, or, what you count as breakage, but we're paying extra for the Hardy computer, right? The special edition rugged computer, and we're at a 43% breakage rate. That seems
can be very rough on technology.
Mr. Smith has a question.
Okay, Mr. Smith.
Just in terms of it, to digest the information, definitely appreciate the information, and appreciate the time that was taken to do it. But I just have just for instance, I'm not sure how it looks. Well, all I'm saying is, just in the future, could we have just the date on the documents and the page number, and then that just will let us know, just in case we have these documents out, what day this meeting was, and that basically if it's page number, then if we have page 1 or 2 of it, then we know it's of the same document. And then also, I'm hearing these numbers, but in my head, I'm trying to process it because you're saying 40%, but I'm thinking about it in terms of pie. My mind go to school like as in like a pie graph, and I'm wondering for the district of our size and how many computers that we give out, whether with 40%, would that be a large piece of the pie versus 60-40? You know, would you give or take, and you understand that you're putting devices in younger people hand the liability, you know, and that also goes back to the process question of things that I was asking earlier. Are these major things, and you know, he does give us the lens and the keyboard, you know, but how badly, how are we getting to also the cost of how much it's costing to get these things fixed as well. So just not. So I think that the percent is a factor, but also how much money are we spending in terms of what it's costing us. And I think that kind of helps with the analysis, with the ending analysis of to kind of sum up, but to say because it's 40%. You know, I can't say that's a lot because there are also some other process questions that I would need to answer at this time. I mean, that's just from my stance. Thank you.
Mr. Nay's hands up.
Mr. Nay?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, do we have any data like comparable from across the country? I mean, from the distributors of the computers, are they collecting any data as to how often their computers are getting breakage or something? I know that they would, because that might be negative to their bottom line. But I'd be interested to know, like, where do we sit nationally? Are we above the average for breakage? Are we below the average for breakage? I mean, 42% is just a number until we compare it to other people in similar situations.
Unfortunately, there is not much data that's put out on device breakage in the K-12 industry by either other school districts or by any vendors in the industry. We've requested data from the bigger school districts in South Carolina, and nobody has returned our request to give up any of their data. So,
wow.
What I will say, and the problem with it is that it's apples to oranges, right? Because we may be overcounting data to a certain extent, what we consider a breakage. But what I will say is there was an interview with GovTech and Microsoft and their one-to-one program, and they said, I'll quote it here, 10 to 15% a year could break, and we're talking one-to-one, that can be a very significant number. So I had kind of in my head 15%, and we're at 43. And the thing is, if we're going to be that far ahead, and we can try and find some better numbers, if we're at 43%, I don't think we're getting our return on investment for the more durable education models. I mean, if that's the more durable education model, then good God, what they must all break that are not in that durable category if 43% are breaking. And I think that we have to acknowledge, because one of the issues is, and we talked about this, I think in the past, Victor, before you were on the committee, these are more expensive to replace these parts than some of the other, you can get cheaper computers where if they break, it's not such an expense to the family. So I think this is something the district needs to look at in terms of either A, the computers we're buying, and if we can find some better numbers, or really look at how we're calculating the breakage rate. And then number two, if indeed we are 3 times the national average on breakage and we can't get better data or whatever, we need to look at sending these computers home with these kids, because I know a screen is a $600 repair, I believe, right?
A screen is $389.
$389 to replace a
Yes.
screen.
Yes.
And these screens are hinged, they flip, they're going to break. I mean, to me, I don't think we use them as a tablet. I don't know why we buy the 2-in-1s, because I mean, not that I have a big, my 5 2-in-1s that I had at my business, we quit using because, it was like an idea that whose time has passed, essentially, in my opinion, unless you have a very specific use case. And the hinges are a problem on them. They wear out, they're not as sturdy. So we've got 3,265 cracked screens I don't know. I think this is something the district needs to do a little more investigation in, because we have, all our elementary schools are Title I. So speaking for Hilton Head, 60% are free and reduced lunch, 42% breakage rate, right? At Hilton Head Island Middle School. So Hilton Head Island Middle School, I think it is Title I, I'm pretty sure. But let's just, for a round number, say half the students there are qualify for free or reduced lunch. You throw in a 42% breakage rate with a $389 screen, and that's a pretty untenable situation for a lot of families. Those are just my comments.
And then also at this time, I believe our district has got a grant. I believe our whole district has free lunch at this time. If my memory serves me accurate, but also Mr. Shaw. Also, I just want to say also in your defense, publicly also that many advisors also ask for dates and page numbers. That was something that we had kind of accustomed to, in your defense, that it was we used to do before you got to this position and you started kind of having a direct your own committee meeting. So just to that was just something that we would come across, because we find documents and we wouldn't know. So I just was saying in your defense. Yeah. Just that's something I wanted to put out there as well. That's all. Say that.
And I will say there are I don't know the exact percentage, but there's a good percentage of our students that go through the whole year without ever having a damage. But then there's also a percentage of students that have 3 to 4 plus in a year. So it's
yeah. I mean, this is a good, first look at the data. But going back to the promissory notes, we know right off 207 of those 8,709 are, 207 students have multiple breakages, right? Or at least that are in the promissory note stage. I'm assuming there's some way we could pull the data and see how many actual unique students had issues with their computer. Because if you have a multiple issue, but the parent's not on a promissory note situation, that data is not going to be captured. So I do think that's worthwhile looking at, because it could be, like you said, I think it's very much probably, we're going to find out it's middle school, in particular. But this is something, since even before I've been on the board, parents are upset about, because that is a huge hit, a $400 bill at the end of the school year that you weren't anticipating. So we have to be mindful of that. And also, if we're paying, I think how much it was $8 million. I don't know, the one-on-one, I know we have this refresh cycle. It's a couple $1 million every time we do because we do middle school at one time, high school at another time, right, Mr. Shohan? It's not like we're refreshing all our devices every 3
That's
years.
Correct. The device itself costs about $500 and something, but then you have to add on top of that about another $80 to be able to track that device in case somebody steals it.
Right.
That's called Absolute Software. And then we also buy the first damage free per year. And that's about another $100 and something. So about $200 is incentives to, one, maintain knowledge of where the district's resources are. And the second one is to help our students and families with accidental damage.
Yeah. And I mean, not to be at all operational, because I don't know the market at all, but from a policy level, I feel like 43% is too high. And it may be that you can refine that data down and look at, well, it's actually only 20% of students, but a certain number of middle school boys are just routinely trashing their device. We can look at that too, and see if there's a better look at the data. But my immediate reaction is 43%. Which that's probably not accurate, right? Because we're just dividing the total number of breaks versus the enrollment. So there's probably a better way to get at that data. But it doesn't seem like a great return on investment for the more expensive computers. And I definitely think looking at the 2-in-1, if we've got 3,700 cracked screens, would not be because it does, it's not as reinforced when it's flipping around. So those are just my thoughts. But I think from a policy perspective, if I was to say, I would say this time next year, I'd like to see that number substantially lower.
But then also, Ms. Boyd, I would one thing too. Also, in the terms of of process, to what degree do we, to what degree, once the screens are cracked several times from the same students, what's that conversation like with the terms with the student in the school? And, you know, is that student still carrying that computer home every day? You know, is that student being told that that computer need to be put in the actual bag that's issued? I mean, you know, I think that's a process question too, because I think so that if you look at some schools are having smaller numbers than the other ones, and my question becomes, what are they doing differently than other schools with higher numbers? And that process, what is that? What could be different processes across the district?
During the standard rollout process, we do inform the students every year that they need to carry it in their given bag for their device. Now, when it comes to the conversations of multiple damages, the technology department does not have those conversations with students. The school administration, either principals or APs, have those conversations with the student and the parent. And sometimes the process is a little different depending on the schools, but usually the process is once the damage comes in, the AP will call the parents. Sometimes the parents will want to come in and meet. One thing I recommend is that all of our techs, whenever there's damage, we take pictures and document that along with the ticket, because a lot of times later in the year, those people will forget they had those damages. So as long as we have it, we have good evidence to show. But those are conversations that our administrators have with the families, and they can differ. We've had parents say that, okay, my kid's already broke 3. I don't want him to have another one for the rest of the year. And those are prerogatives that the parents can make, and we have to abide by their wishes.
Well, that's new information. Parents can opt out of having a device.
They can. It's not recommended, but they can.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for providing this data, because this is not in any way a judgment on the technology department. I just think it's something that from a policy standpoint, we need to, it is very impactful on families, and we hear from our constituents that it's a problem. So I think, you know, looking at these numbers and trending them, and I think we do need to kind of cut this data a few different ways, because this is a very much a rough look at it. I don't think the final number is going to be 43%. I think it's going to be substantially lower, but I have no idea. So I think it'd be worthwhile looking at that data a little bit differently, because this is probably in the top 5 of things that I hear about out in the community, is the cost of repairing, and the fact that I don't think people know they can opt out if they have their own device or whatever, because some of them are just like, I don't even want him to have this computer because he's, you know, 8th grade boy who's playing football and he's throwing it around, you know, that type of thing. So, but I think this is a problem for families. Any other comments?
No, ma'am.
All right.
Negative.
All right. Thanks for that, Mr. Shohan. Thanks for that data. This one I asked to add on this backup ISP.
Yes, I can talk a little bit about that. We do currently have a backup ISP. The district has 2 connections to the internet. Our primary connection from SEGRA, which is state provided, comes in at the north side of the county. And then if for some reason that internet connection goes out, we do have a secondary internet connection that goes out the south part of the county. And we do that to help stop a case where the fiber gets cut in both, you know, going through the same conduit. What happened the other week was a perfect storm. There was a total of 4 fiber cuts within a 3-hour time period. One in Hampton, which cut off our state internet connection. And then 2 in Pooler and in Garden City, which cut off our backup internet connection. And that was an unfortunate thing, because not only did the school district go down, but most of your Hargray customers, most of your Comcast customers, even cell phone providers, T-Mobile and Verizon was down, because cell phone providers usually use a local ISP to bring that data from the cellular tower back to an internet hub. So unfortunately, it was just a bad situation, and it was none we could even dream to plan for. Generally speaking, it's hard enough to get a secondary backup line because you're paying for something that you're really not using. You're paying for something to supplement when there's a catastrophe with the state line. On average, over the past 5 years, we've had one outage that lasted more than, about 20 to 24 hours per year. That's starting in 2018. Up until this past year, we had 2 outages. So far this year, we've seen 3 outages. So I don't know if it's just an increase. The biggest thing is all the extra construction. We have a lot of service providers overbuilding our local ones. The first cut we had at the beginning of the school year was actually up here at Mink Point Road. And that was by another internet service provider building over Hargray and actually cut through a fiber connection that was buried 8 foot down. So that was unfortunate, but generally speaking, we very rarely have outages for more than 24 hours. So that's one of the reasons why we don't have 2 active connections. One reason is because our E-rate funding would not pay for the second connection. You're only allowed the 1 connection from the state. So we have to pay for our backup connection through district funds.
Do you know how much we're paying for a backup ISP?
It's very cheap because it is off the majority of the time. I don't have the number in front of you, but it's about $1,000 a month.
Okay. For all 35 schools?
Well, no. That's the main interconnect connection. Our main internet connections come in at our data centers. And then we relay that out through our Metro E, and our Metro E connects to every one of our schools through a 1 gig fiber connection through Hargrave.
So does the backup only cover the main line coming into the data center then?
Correct. Our main internet connection that comes from Columbia comes into the data center here at the district office. And that is a 5.5 gig pipe to the internet. And if something happens and that goes down, our firewall will automatically switch to our secondary connection. And that is also a 5 gig connection to the internet.
Okay.
So generally speaking, 300 and probably 60 something days of the year, it is doing nothing but sitting there in case of emergency.
Well, the only times we've ever thought about using it that I know about, one time was when they cut something way up at the Columbia level that took the whole state out. There was nothing to be done. So the 2 times I've heard of it needing to be called into action, it did not work, which is always, has it ever actually been implemented? Like, have we ever actually switched to our secondary?
It has. The reason that is previously, before this past year, we've only had basically a glorified cable modem as our backup that wouldn't handle the full load of the district, but would handle basic communications for office and administrators, just to keep the business function. But we upgraded that this past year to a symmetrical 5 gig connection. And the first chance we had to use it was unfortunately the perfect storm with the 4 cuts all at once. So we've done testing with it on the weekends and we know it does work.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we haven't seen it in action in the live environment yet.
Okay. But it's basically, and I don't understand the whole, what do you call it, the state thing, what's the term? SCAGO, not SCAGO, what is it?
Segra.
Because do we have Hargrave? Because Spectrum worked like a charm, which threw me off because when we have had like a major cut before, usually they both go down because they both come in on the same pipe up to a point, right? So when Hargrave went down, Spectrum was beautiful.
So basically, Segra is the state-provided internet service, and how they operate is they run a connection that's part of usually they're buying third-party fiber. So they basically rent dark fiber from Hargray inside of Beaufort County to provide that connection, but it is technically a Segra fiber all the way from Columbia to us here at the district office, passing through Hargray's fiber distribution.
So we don't have a backup internet service provider. We have a backup pipeline in case one Segra goes down.
No, our second connection is not Segra. It is just a Hargray connection that goes through to Pooler, Georgia,
either
for a
way,
secondary
Hargray-
internet.
We're all Hargray all the time.
Yes.
All right. That explains that. I just wanted clarification because several people had asked me about it. Like, why didn't we have backup? Okay. And the last thing, and this is something I also, I'm sorry, and did anyone else have any questions about that? I just wanted to get that out to the public on the backup ISP.
Hey, I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
No, please go ahead.
I had to step away for a minute. But one of the things I wanted to ask is in this conversation is I was out at Whale Branch High School a week and a half ago to attend the school board session out there, a South Carolina School Board Association session. And I went to the high school in Era, and the phones don't work there. And I know that South Carolina, I think, has just been awarded $446 million to expand coverage under Jim Streitzinger's broadband. Does that would that help that school and other schools?
We have tried working with cellular providers in the past to get a tower built actually on Whale Branch property.
Okay.
But unfortunately, the cellular providers backed out of the deal, saying there was not enough customers in the area to qualify the extra tower. And I do believe our operations department is also in talks with another cellular provider about a tower on Whale Branch, middle Whale Branch L property.
Mm-hmm.
But these are very slow to come about, and they're very finicky. They really look at the local community subdivisions being built, houses being built, and they make their estimates through census data.
And not for nothing, Mr. Shohan, but I don't know if y'all have seen what's going on in Western North Carolina. They've had no internet. What they have had is Starlink, and Starlink does now to sell. And that would be an easy install. And they basically, some guy like rounded up 10 of them and just started dropping them off like with a helicopter at locations. I think that would be a cheap, low permit way to get cell phone service around the school. But it's early adoption phase. So for what it's worth.
They're actually got already worked out a deal with Apple, and my network director used it during the Perfect Storm fiber cut. When he pulled out his newer iPhone, it gave him an option to go to satellite. So he was actually able to make calls and texts during the outage. So that is a feature with, I do believe it's iPhone 13 and above, that I think SpaceX and Apple has worked that deal out.
Yeah. All right.
As for cellular signal inside of our buildings is a different matter. Because of the way our buildings are constructed with poured concrete, the steel reinforcement for all ceilings, it really does a number on cellular signal. And generally, most of our buildings, once you move about 30 feet inside of them, you lose your cellular connection. The only way to countermeasure that is similar to how we've done the BCAs with the radio systems. We would have to actually bring in a private signal inside of our buildings and connect it to a tower on top of our buildings. Not a full tower, but an antenna to help bring that cellular signal in. The problem with that is it takes different equipment depending on if you're a Verizon, if you're a T-Mobile. They use different technologies in order to get their signal out. So Sprint and T-Mobile use similar technologies, and then AT&T and Verizon use similar technologies. So The cost to bring that into our schools for just one cellular provider would be roughly, it depends on the size of the building, but it'd be roughly about $150,000 to $200,000 per building.
Well, and we just banned cell phones in the classroom, so it seems like like the wrong time to the wrong
Yeah.
message.
Yeah. No, I clearly hear what you're saying. I was just following up on the fact that the state of South Carolina is going to get almost $500 million
Yeah.
to help fund those things. So maybe there are new options out there. That's all.
No, and Mr.
Absolutely.
Dowd,
And this could also be a topic for future referendums.
right. And this has been, Mr. Blouse, brought up multiple times because it's actually more about the community that is around Whale Branch High, not the school itself. That whole area is a dead zone, and that is a concern for Mr. Strizinger and for people in the school, because it was really a problem with the pandemic with what the school district gave people who did not have internet access at home, where was the MiFis, and there was very little cell service out there. And there's a whole backstory to that. But I think it's one thing, to try and provide the school district provide cell service in and around the school to benefit the community, which is different than the $200,000 tended to get cell service inside of the school. So I think your point is still very, very valid.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I know that a lot of these grants have been going, federal grants have been going to different ISPs, service providers. But unfortunately, they're kind of cherry picking how they roll it out in the community. So they'll roll right down 21 and then cut off into a big subdivision. But then they'll roll past all those onesie twosie houses and keep going to that next big subdivision. So that's also another big issue that Representative Claiborne has been working on for South Carolina and up in Washington.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
also, Ms. Boatright, if you don't mind, also, I was just gonna bring that up, because I know that Congressman Clyburn was also working on something, I believe, within the within that Whale Branch Dale cluster, to get something about the internet, it was the internet ban or something along that. And so at first I wasn't sure when Mr. Dallas was speaking was someone he referring to, but I think it would be great if we could find a way to tie the two together to maybe start some meetings of the mind of how we can get both of those done, or how we can get both of those people from the Congressman Clyburn into that other pool of money. I think we, as they say, I think we should start campaigning for those things to come together. And also in terms of Mr. Shohan has also said that we are willing to give them the property to put those towers on. And if we could, and maybe if we could all come together like a puzzle, I think that would definitely benefit the district. So I don't know how we would go about to start campaigning or trying to get all those people to the table to start having those conversations and those questions to see how we can all get those things accomplished. This would be my stance. I think that, and I know Mr. Carter, Mr. Dallas likes to have us campaign for things for the district to help out the kids. So,
and Congressman Clyburn's team worked on with the state of South Carolina mapping of all broadband and cellular services throughout the whole state. He did that about 5 or 6 years ago, and it really was an eye opener to where you could really drill down on a map of the state and go county by county, and you could see the deficiencies. And that's when we really noticed the deficiency north of the Broad River, in our Whale Branch area, our St. Helena area, our Ladies Island area. Those little onesie twosie areas and those down dirt roads is where your ISPs don't travel, and it's also where there's not adequate cell towers to support infrastructure. Because I mean, honestly, with a good cell tower within 5 miles of your house, you can do all your Zoom calls with your standard T-Mobile or Verizon, having a hotspot, or even using your phone as a hotspot. But if they're not fully saturating the area to get good enough coverage, we're still going to have families in need.
Yeah, that's been a long, and I think the school district absolutely has been partnering or trying to partner to solve that problem out there north of the Broad. So definitely something we can continue talking about and advocating for, because that is important. And I think it is particularly problematic around Whale Branch. I wanted to end this meeting by 7. So the 7th here, yeah.
You skipped the brief discussion of AI policy for software also.
Oh, okay. If you guys don't, I mean, we can have that conversation now. Do we want to go ahead and have that conversation now, Mr. Smith and Mr. Nay, or do we want to put that off till the next time? It just came up because I know we're still blocking AI applications on student devices. And so I wasn't sure if we should start talking about how the board's policy should go towards that in the classroom environment. And I know Mr. Shohan's provided some executive summary of what the district's currently doing with regards to teachers and using them for like lesson plans and that sort of thing. Do we want to have that conversation now, or maybe table it to another meeting?
Would Mr. Shohan mind just going through his executive summary, and then we'll, I guess, allow questions that maybe are next, so we have time to think it over and mull it over?
Great idea. Is that okay with you, Mr. Shohan?
Absolutely, and I'll kind of summarize it down. I don't want to read everything to you. But basically, the district and the ISD department has been working very tirelessly to come up with this plan. We currently do block AI for students at this time, but we do allow it for our staff members. One of the tools that we have purchased for our teaching staff is a product called Turnitin, and it basically looks for plagiarism and AI usage when our students are turning in reports and stuff like that. And the second big tool that ISD has been focusing on is an AI tool called Magic School K-12, which is an AI focused only on the K-12 environment to help teachers create lesson plans, to help create quizzes and different stuff that our teachers may need in the classroom. And that is something that they have just finished the initial training. And I actually sat in on it with the tech coaches, and it's going to be a train the trainer method. So the tech coaches will start going around to the different coaches at each school, training them and the base teaching staff. And then as we go through the year, we'll start getting all of our staff trained on it and bring it to fruition probably by second semester of this year, when our teachers will really start using it. It is a neat tool. It is K-12 centric, so it's a little bit easier to come up with a lot of the stuff that our teachers ask for, compared to when you use like a ChatGPT or Copilot or something like that, that really just scrapes the internet for the data it sees. This one's more looking at databases that are educational, more educational than, I would say, your average ChatGPT.
So you're dipping your toes into the water of AI.
We are slowly doing it. It took them a while to, we worked with some other school districts, as you can see on the bottom of our, the second page, the position on generative artificial intelligence. That we did look at some other school districts, like we referenced Greenville. Greenville School District had a great AI plan that they had been working on for over a year. So we worked with some of them on ours. We really are waiting for the state to make their definitive answer on how they want to treat students when it comes to AI. We don't want to get out ahead of the state and roll something out and then the state go, nope, that's not the way we're going to do it. We need to do it this way. So we are kind of taking it slow, as you said, just getting our feet wet. And hopefully, once this ball gets rolling, though, it's going to be letting the cat out the bag. There's not going to be much stopping it.
Agree. Any questions or comments from committee members?
No, I was gonna say, I won't be surprised if the state does hand down some type of, directive on AI, because I know that that, that from, I know from the higher ups, to the Congress and things different, that I know that at one point in time, they were talking, and, I don't remember in what committee they were talking about some of this, in terms of how we should be moving forward as companies, schools, and different things in terms of information from AI. So I won't be surprised if some of the state does bring some legislation down in terms of this. Let's leave it there. Look forward to continuing conversation. Thank you, Mr. Shawn, for.
Yeah, I think it's something that we do need to start talking about. I mean, the district does, and I think the school board has some interest, because for me, AI goes to how we're preparing the kids for the future, how they're going to work in the future. Because I know personally, I use AI all the time to write emails. It's just becoming integrated in subtle ways into a lot of stuff. So I think it's a good thing that the district has started looking into using it and using it responsibly and ethically, and then kind of spinning that down towards the students. So I do think it's an ongoing discussion. Mr. Ney, do you have any questions?
No, I use Magic School myself, come up with lesson plans and rubrics and all kinds of stuff. So I'm interested to see how we incorporate it in a larger scale system.
Yeah. Mr. Dallas, Ms. Hay, any comments on AI?
I think it's a great topic. The way you've discussed it and teed it up is very important. And on a broader scale, ma'am, I think this has been a superb meeting with a wonderful list of topics to discuss. So thank you all.
Thank you. And I will say, just in closing, we do have on item number 7, and this has been a long meeting because we haven't met since May, and there's a lot going on in technology. But what I'm noticing is I want to just throw it out there for you guys to think about and bring back to our next meeting. I don't have a great way to put this, but what I will say is, going out and about as a parent, as someone that's, friends with other parents, I feel like we need to get more teacher and more parent input when we're making software decisions, when we're looking at different things and how it's being implemented and who's in charge of making sure it is implemented. And I've been kind of using as my test balloon this new Raptor management system that we spent probably, when all said and done with computers, over $100,000 on, I would guess. I don't have the final number on. And I think it's a great product. And not only is it creating efficiency and standardization when kids are leaving school or arriving late, attendance issues, it's doing a good job with that. It's also collecting really valuable data. In terms school by school, grade by grade, student by student, what does their attendance profile look like? Are they frequently tardy? Are they frequently leaving early? That sort of thing. So I was kind of watching with interest how it implement. And to me, the implementation is really spotty, because I don't think anyone's requiring schools to use it. I know that the schools I've gone to, I am still seeing sign in and sign out sheets, paper, which, if someone wants to know if a school is having a performance issue, or it's that we're coming up short on that 75, 92, and we say, well, let's look at this school. One of the things I would want to look at is, what's the attendance like? What's the tardy situation? How many kids are leaving early? Type of thing. And you can't get that from paper sheets. So somewhere along the line, I think, as I sit on the board and I hear about all the fabulous technology, and Mr. Shohan's on top of everything in terms of our network. I mean, it is very impressive how well run our technology department is. I'm not sure that's trickling down to the end user. And so you kind of get this end user experience that is, from my experience, really problematic, because it's just uneven in some implementation. So I was trying to think, that's why I put those technology plans in. Mr. Shohan, I did look up our technology plan on the website, and Jeff Moss signed it in 2018. I think we need to look at that strategically as part of the strategic plan. And Mr. Dallas has mentioned this many, many times, the board and the district looking at that together. and try to get some input from people or some feedback if we want to do something that says, how is this technology working for you as a teacher in the classroom or as a parent with a child at home, or even for some students? Because there's a lot of frustration that occurs when you've got great technology and the network's fabulous and it's secure and it's all working like it's supposed to. But if it's unevenly implemented, you're not getting the bang for the buck. You can actually cause frustration. So I just wanted to think about how maybe as a board, we could gather that feedback similar to what we do with our custodians, right? Similar to what we do with some of the surveys we put out. Or I was even thinking like our health advisory committee. Not that I want it to be an advisory role, but just a way for us to make sure that when we roll out an AI tool for teachers, how are they using it? What percentage of teachers are using it? Do they find it helpful? Do they find it frustrating? And right now, I'm just not sure that we have that tool in place. And if we do, Mr. Shohan, I apologize. But I wanted to kind of talk about that with the board as something I was thinking about going forward. So any comments, or, if you guys think that's a bad idea, I'm up for that too.
Never hurts to have discussions.
To me.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I said, sounds good to me.
Yeah, I think that I wouldn't want to rush this topic. I think that we have, it looks like we have some topics for the next meeting, for the next meeting. I would imagine bringing this topic and the last topic back up. And then also the process of what we discussed earlier in terms of the information that he gave us. What's the processing of digesting that information as well? So it looks like we possibly could have three topics already for the next meeting. Yeah, I wouldn't even want to even engage and start to dive in this conversation. I think that we would need more time to do that. So I would definitely think that it'd be worth bringing this back to have more in depth to understand exactly what we're talking about.
Well, my request to the rest of the committee would be, and to the other board members would be to think about, I sent out that stuff, the National Education, I forget, NTEP standards for education technology, there are lots of other technology plans that boards have. And one of the things I like is that they talk about, it's not just about the digital divide, which is what Mr. Dallas was referring to in Whale Branch. If people have unequal access to the internet, that creates a digital divide, and that's not good. But another thing is, they talked, I forget exactly the term they used, but are we using these tools to create engaging, innovative, creative, problem-solving classrooms as we intend them to be? Or are we just, using them to digitize basically worksheets? Because kids are having different experience with different teachers in the classroom, and that's creating another kind of digital divide. So with y'all's permission, I'd like to put it on our next meeting. And between now and then, if you guys are thinking about it or doing a little checking into it, just to have some ideas, because I would love to see the vision that Mark and Dr. Stratos and Dr. Rodriguez have for technology really filtering into the student-teacher experience. So that was just kind of my request. And
no objections.
All right, perfect. If there's not any other comments, it is 7:15, and I think we are all ready to go do our stuff tonight. So any other final comments, questions, or thoughts from the committee or other board members?
Negative.
Okay, then I would totally entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
Everybody,
Thanks, everybody. Great meeting.
appreciate it. You guys have a good night.
You too.